People kind of like you get to this by mistake and they're like, wait a minute. But if you wanted to use this as a surface to write on, you know, you can use the pens and you can use this as a whiteboard surface. You'll notice on the side here, there's a little box with an arrow. If you click on that, either with the pen or your finger, you can adjust the pens and you can also write with your finger. So for example, if I took this pen, and the difference between this one and this one is a slight colored line. So one of them is orange, one of them is green. So if I take the orange pen, you guys see that line that I'm talking about? It's kind of hard to see, but if I took the orange pen and say I said I want this thick and black, that's going to be programmed to this pen. If I take the blue pen and say I want it skinny and red, that's programmed to that pen. So this is still going to be thick and black, whereas this one's going to be skinny and red. The third kind of component to this is your finger. So if I take my finger, and you always know what pen is what, down at the bottom here. So I know it's kind of hard to see, but there's a little indicator. This one's the orange pen, which matches this one. The blue pen is red. And right now, the finger is an eraser.
Oh my God.
See, there's a little finger icon, and it's the eraser. If I wanted it, say I wanted to write with my finger with a thick blue pen, that's going to be blue. This is still black. And this, oops, now I'm confusing myself, is red. So you can assign 3 different functions, 1 function, 2 function, 3. Does that make sense, or is your mind blown?
I didn't even know that those are the functions.
I know, it's a little confusing to think about, but this just takes a little bit of practice.
So the finger could be used as an eraser.
Yep.
I would always press on the eraser.
And this is just an eraser. You can kind of see as you're erasing exactly what it's erasing. You see that kind of like really light gray. So if you know, say I wanted that erased, you can kind of see very slightly. And you might not even, can you guys see it from the back or not really?
Yeah, we can see it.
Yeah? Okay.
Great.
If you want everything wiped at once, do you see the tool down here that looks like the eraser with a big square? That's just a clear screen. So if I said, yep, clear it, everything's gone and you're back to just a blank screen. The downside of these whiteboards, they can be saved, but typically people prefer to use the Smart Notebook software if it's something that they want saved, just because you have a lot of different options as far as you can save it as a PDF and you know you can post it on Blackboard and things like that. This is more for a temporary space, if that makes sense. The rest of these tools, these are highlighters, you know, so if you wrote something up there. Really all people use this function for is jotting quick notes. I mean, not a lot of people are bringing text into this and all that. That would be something you would probably set up on the computer before class. This is just kind of a temporary whiteboarding space. Does that kind of make sense what the whiteboard's used for? Yeah?
Okay.
Any questions on it? I know it's a little confusing if you've never played with this mode. No? Okay. You know, you can add different slides to it, so if you want another page, similar to PowerPoint or Notebook, you know, like I said, you can save it. I would say if you were going to save it, use Notebook. It just seems to work a little bit more seamlessly, and I'll show you Notebook in a little bit so you can kind of get used to that. The other, you know, kind of important tools to know, the one that looks like the square with the line at the bottom here, these are your different sources. So the way that we got to the whiteboard to begin with is we went up here to whiteboard. These are the different sources. The computer, I think, is HDMI 1. Let's make sure. am I being videoed? It's HDMI 2, sorry. So the computer is HDMI 2. So really the only two inputs that you would be probably playing with are whiteboard and HDMI 2 are the only two. The rest of these, if you click on it, like say I clicked on, I don't know, computer, it's just gonna be a blue screen and it's not going to, eventually it'll turn blue. And that's like no source is plugged into that input. And it's a little confusing in your source button because you see computer and you think computer, right? The difference is this input is a VGA input, but the projector is HDMI. So HDMI is a little bit newer technology. VGA is kind of the old school, I guess. But just remember, HDMI 2 is going to show the computer on the screen. The other one that people seem to like and play with, as far as the functions down here, the pause button at the bottom here, there's two straight lines that go down. That is a freeze screen. So what freeze means is if I had an image up here, or if I had directions, or a writing prompt, or something I wanted the students to work on, and I go over to the computer, you can't see, yes you can. Let's see. That should have frozen the screen. Actually, does someone have the remote? Let's try it from there. So it should be either that, or on the remote, I think it's called freeze. So basically what that does is it freezes the screen so you can, it's still not showing up, let's see. The batteries might be getting down on there. But basically the freeze function freezes the screen so you can multitask and do something else on the computer and your students don't see what you're doing. So other than that, let's see. Some of the faculty, I know sound has been, a question for the Epson boards. The sound for this situation are coming out of the speakers that are mounted on the side. I'm not 100% sure if all of the classrooms have the speakers that are mounted on the side. Sometimes, depending on the setup, there is internal speakers in that projector. So sometimes the volume, is controlled down here. But for this situation, you would control the volume with these knobs on the speakers. So, and then I always, just double check and make sure that the volume on the computer is turned all the way up as well, because that will. If it's not up on the computer, then it's not going to talk to these speakers. So, lastly, as far as the functionality, the two boxes that look like the 1 and the 2, basically what this does is it allows you to have two screens up at once. So what's the advantage of this? You could have like the whiteboard on one side and the computer on the other. So if you were watching like a video or something like that and you wanted to take notes, you might want to show a video and do notes at the same time. Through that icon down here that has the 1 and the 2, you can say I want, whiteboard and HDMI 2, and then switch source, and it should put the whiteboard on one side and your computer on the other. You can adjust the size of this. So if this is, too small, too big, however you want it. So if I brought up, for example, a video over here, or a website or something, I could show it here, and then I can also use the pens and take notes on the whiteboard side. So that just allows you to have two things up at once, if that makes sense. Any questions on any of those basic functions? No? And then when you're done, you just go back to that same 1-2, and you just do exit split screen, and it will just bring you back to the computer. So I know it's a little confusing, but the more you play with it, I think the more the more you'll get used to some of those. A lot of people like that dual split screen because they can kind of multitask and do two things at once. But yeah, as long as you're on, the computer, everything is touch sensitive, so you can just, kind of pick up and write, or pick up and annotate. If you wanted to write on the Epson board, if you pick up the pen, you'll notice on the side here, there's an icon that looks like a computer and a mouse. Does everybody see that? When you're on the mouse and the computer mode, this allows you to use your touch like a mouse on the computer, right? So that icon says, you know what, if you wanted to scroll, you could scroll. If I wanted to click on, a link, I could do that. All of this is now touch enabled. If I click on that icon, I have an option that has a little pen by it. Does everybody see the second option? The pen, I'll give you a second here, and you don't have very long. The difference between the two, the pen icon gives you this bar that should look familiar because this is the same bar that you see in the whiteboard. But basically, this bar allows you to annotate when you're outside of the whiteboard. Yep.
That's the whiteboard I use all the time.
The one on the side?
Yeah.
Okay.
And the one in the picture.
Yep, so that is the same as this.
No,
So-
the picture itself.
Oh,
That
this one,
room.
right here.
That's the room that I'm in.
Oh, you're like, that's me.
Ah,
You're probably
No,
standing
I'm not
over
in
to the
there.
side, right? Oh, I was like, this one, right? What are you talking about?
That's the board that I
That's the
use.
Epson.
We do workshops in that room.
Oh, okay.
Mhm.
Where is this?
It's right in the front, B100, in the student center.
Oh, yeah.
Mhm.
Okay, I've been in there. Yeah.
And so, yeah, use it all the time. I said, it's a training.
You're like, that's me. That's my space. So yeah, do you guys see the difference between the pen mode and the mouse mode? Does everybody understand that? Seems to confuse people a little bit. And right now when I'm on pen mode, you can change the different pen colors and thicknesses. Same erase features. There's the clear screen. That's gonna delete everything, yes. The biggest thing that people get hung up on with the annotation mode is if you're writing, and then say I wanted to scroll down on this site, it's the same, the writing stays with the screen. So kind of think of it as kind of a clear layer that's on top of your website, that when you scroll, the writing doesn't scroll with the website, the writing stays on the screen. So basically what you would have to do is clear, say yes, and then scroll down, and then start writing again. And then to get back to just the, the mouse mode, you just go back to that icon and switch over to the mouse mode. And now you're not using the pens. So the biggest thing is navigating between the pen mode and the mouse mode and kind of understanding the differences between the two. Questions?
You can click on both, right?
You can, yeah. So you
Mouse and
can
pen.
be on pen mode and use your finger as a mouse. Does that make sense?
But if it's just mouse, you can, without clicking on the pen, you cannot.
Correct. Yep. So if you're here, see how it's just
You can.
acting like
Right.
a mouse, basically. Yep. So yeah, just toggling between the difference, or the two. And then again, if you wanted to get over to the whiteboard, you can either click it from that side panel, the actual button, or there's an icon down here. And that'll take us back to, that'll take us back to the split screen with the whiteboard, but if you can move the whiteboard all the way over if you just wanted whiteboard space. Does that confusing, or is it pretty, is it okay? Do you want okay with it? All right. As far as using, let's go back. Exit split screen. As far as using other applications with the Epson board, with your PowerPoints, I know a lot of faculty use PowerPoint with their class materials, so let me open a PowerPoint. This is not my PowerPoint, so I don't know what we're gonna see here. New employee orientation, perfect. So typically with PowerPoint, people are typically putting it in the slideshow mode. If I just wanted to display this PowerPoint, I could do that. You'll notice that when you click, it will,
It goes to the next slide?
yep, it'll advance.
Wow.
And you can go through the presentation. Similar to, sometimes people have the old,
Clicker?
the clicker, just kind of advance the slides so they don't have to go back and forth to the computer. Let me show you if you wanted to write in this PowerPoint. So if I wanted to write, let me just kind of go back to the beginning. You'll notice that, and I know it's hard to see and it kind of fades away quickly. Move that down so it's not in the way. Oops, capture that image now. All right. You'll notice that at the bottom of the PowerPoint slides, and it fades away very quickly, but there's two arrows, and then the third tool is a writing tool. And did you guys see it? It's kind of hard to see, but it looks like, so here are the two arrows, and this is the writing tool. So in order to write on the PowerPoints, you have to click on that ink tool, and then you can use that to write on the slides. So you can use your, I guess you can't use your finger, but you can use the pens to then write on the slides.
Can you also click on the other side?
Well, the writing has to be activated within PowerPoint. So it has to be done from that pen tool at the bottom.
What about the pen icon over there?
This
Oh,
one,
yeah.
you can, but this is gonna be the one that stays on the screen.
Oh, okay.
Remember how, that's kind of that clear layer. So in PowerPoint, I'm glad you asked that, in PowerPoint, you're better off using the PowerPoint
It stays on that
inking
slide.
tool because it'll stay with the presentation, it'll stay on the slide. Otherwise, there's no harm in doing this. But when I advance to the next slide, see how all this,
Mm-hmm.
all these writings and all these annotations stay on the screen versus the slide. But if I use PowerPoint's ink, just go back to PowerPoint's ink. And then I advance, see how it stays with that particular slide and not with the screen. So, I know it's a little confusing.
No.
But you're better off using the PowerPoint tools within PowerPoint, just to avoid having to, and if you're comfortable writing and then erasing and then moving on, there's no harm in doing it the other way. I think a lot of people just prefer to have the annotation stay with the slide, so they can go back and refer to the notes on that slide or, do it however they want. And then when you exit the presentation, these annotations, it'll ask you, it'll prompt you, oops, it says, do you want to keep or do you want to discard? And if you hit discard, then it's back to the original state. If I would have clicked keep, then those annotations become images in my PowerPoint slides. So, questions on that? No? Okay. I know we kind of talked about websites. With websites, you're better off just inking, like I showed you on the ink tools, even though you scroll. But on the Epson board, there's no way for the website to stay with the ink. So you're better off just using the ink slides and then just discarding them as we move on. So, otherwise, your third option with the Epson boards, you still have full functionality of the smartboard software. So, I know in the smartboard workshop, we, dug into the smartboard software a little bit deeper. But if you just want a whiteboard space that you can save and write notes and that kind of thing, a lot of faculty, let me move the tools to the top so you can see them a little bit better. A lot of faculty are leaning towards working within the notebook software for their whiteboarding and for those basic functionalities. So the biggest difference between the smartboard and the Epson board is on the smartboard, with your pen tray, you just pick up the pen and you start working. On the Epson board, the biggest difference is you have to go to the tool that looks like the pen, select your color, and then you can ink. So it's a little bit, extra of a step, but all you have to do is select, the pen, the color, and then you can use it, to write. So, and you can use your finger as well. So if you prefer to write with your finger. Typically people like the stylus because it's a little bit more natural to have a stylus in your hand versus writing with your finger. But, and all the same tools that we covered in that workshop work with this board too, so you can add, different pages to it. There we go. You can use that screen shade that we talked about, different pens, the lab activities. You can dive into any of the same functions. The biggest difference is you just have to go to the toolbar and select the pen icon. What questions do you have on Notebook? No? Okay. I'm trying to think of other things that you guys would use. Do you guys use the document camera in these classrooms? This? Okay. If you do, there's a couple different document cameras, I think, throughout campus. I believe the Epson boards, like this one, are standardized with this black document camera. It's called IPEVO, I-P-E-V-O.
Right.
To use this with the board, you just turn it on, and then you slide your document under it. Let's just grab a sign-in sheet or something, or a piece of paper. You got one? Perfect. Thank you. So turn it on, put your paper under it, and then the software on the computer, in order to see the document under it, is called the IPEVO. Let's see. It's right here. It's the green icon, and it's called IPEVO, and it's called Presenter. And when you click on Presenter, then whatever's under the camera, you should be able to see through the projector. You can make it, full screen. You can kind of use it however you want. But this is a live image, so if you move the document, then it's going to kind of throw things off. But there's a couple different ways people use the document camera. Typically, people just put a textbook under it or a book under it, and they're just displaying content of what's under here. But does anybody use the document camera for any other ways or any other? No, just a textbook typically. Okay. So yeah, that's the basics of that IPEVO. And all I did to get it in full screen is on the left, there's a full screen icon, and I just clicked on that, and it brought me back. And then escape, or I think there was escape right here, brings me back to the regular view. So, so yeah, that's the presenter, the IPEVO document camera. Any questions on that? I have had people take screenshots and then take those screenshots and put them into Notebook and write on that, but, you know, typically people just use that as a display, right? So they're just displaying and entering the, you know, just doing it live under with the camera, so. All right, we talked about that. Trying to think, what other programs do you typically use in your classrooms that we didn't go over? Do you guys use PDFs a lot? Or not really? Here and there sometimes? Okay. With your PDFs, you know, you can open them if you just wanted to, you know, scroll through, you can obviously do that. Oops. I don't want to take the tour. All right, there we go. You can write on it using that, you know, the pen mode over here. So you can annotate on the PDF, but the downside of it, just like we saw on websites, when you go to scroll, it doesn't stay with the PDF. So if you are just going to display your PDF, you know, obviously that's pretty easy to do. But if you wanted to write on your PDF, or it's something that you were, you know, wanting to use a little bit more interactively, what I would recommend is converting it from PDF or from Adobe to Smart Notebook. And to do that, because then you can write, you can scroll, you can use, you know, some of those features. To convert a PDF or a Word document to Notebook, all you have to do is open the PDF, just like it is right now, so it's just open in Adobe, and you go to File, and then Print, which I know is crazy.
Print.
This is not my my idea. So in your, you know, your drop down of your printer choices, you know, here's like a Brother printer, here's a fax, whatever. One of your printers, and you might have noticed it, you might not have, is called Smart Notebook Document Writer. Does everybody see that one?
Mhm.
So when you print it to Smart Notebook, so when I select print here, don't run down to a printer, it's not going to physically print anything. But this pop-up screen is going to come up and it's going to say, what do you want, or how do you want to print / to share your document? And I'm going to say, print it to Notebook. And then basically what it does is it converts it from a PDF file into a Notebook file.
So it's gonna show it, and
Yep.
there you can annotate.
Exactly, so then you can use those annotation tools to write and scroll.
And you can again save this as a PDF later on.
Yep, absolutely.
Export or something like
Yep,
that.
exactly, so you can do, good question, I'm glad you asked that. So if this was something, you know, a worksheet that you wrote on and you wanted to make sure that your students could see it from
You can actually
Notebook.
send an email for somebody who's absent or something like
Exactly, you could do file and then export as,
that.
and you
PDF.
could go back to PDF.
And you will name it differently so it doesn't inflate it. So. Okay.
Yep, exactly, so you can do, you know, you don't have to have the borders or anything like that, but you can just, however you want to do it, and then you just click save, and you would call it cultural
They say
document with
notes
notes
or
or whatever.
something, yeah.
Yep,
What
exactly,
if you just
so,
exit out of it?
what's
They
that?
will not save.
Then it's not saved.
It's not saved. If you want to save it to send to your students, to
Yeah.
keep it so you
Okay, so if you cancel that, and if you exit it out there, what does it say? Do you save then if you don't?
So if you say no, then it's gone
It
forever.
goes,
it just
oh, I
You
thought
just
it-
have an
I thought
old
it goes
PDF.
back to the P.
no. You will
original
just have your
PDF.
original PDF, not the one that you modify
With
in your
the,
pen.
yeah,
Exactly.
yes, okay.
And if you just click save from right here, it saves it as a Smart Notebook file. And I think we
Right.
discussed this in the previous workshop, but the Smart Notebook file program, or that file type, is not a common file type. So if you emailed them, if you emailed your students a Smart Notebook file and said, hey, you know, I'm going to send you this document, this was the notes, you know, these were the notes for class or whatever, they're not going to be able to open that document because it's going to get to them and it's going to say .notebook. They try to open it and it says cannot open cannot find the program on their computer or whatever. So if you want to make sure that your students can access this information, always, always, always export it as a PDF. And then they're able to, you know, you can upload it to Blackboard or whatever. But that process of exporting it to the PDF is just under File, and then Export as PDF. So, questions on that? No? Okay. Yeah, anytime, I mean, I think my personal preference is when you can work in Notebook, it's a pretty seamless program to kind of learn and get used to. I mean, it's easy to bring in your documents or your PDFs and things like that, but it just takes a little bit of playing with. The biggest thing that people get hung up on in Notebook, I'll tell you, is if they're on here, you know, and they're writing, and then someone comes up and moves something, and it kind of throws everything off as far as your writing and your, you know, your annotations. But so I would recommend, if you were going to write on a PDF in Notebook, before you start, here's your PDF. It's basically a giant picture. But in the right-hand corner, there's a little square with an arrow. And one of the options in this drop-down is called lock. And you want to lock it into place. Then you can't move. You can still move the writing, but you can't move that background picture or that PDF file. So that's usually the biggest thing that people get hung up on with their PDFs in Notebook. Questions on that? No. And the same process that file print works for Word documents. If anybody, you know, writes in Word or annotates or wants to transition to Notebook. Trying to think. Talked about the document camera, we talked about Word, talked about the whiteboard mode a little bit. What other questions do you guys have? I know this is kind of a shorter workshop, but I just want to make sure that you're comfortable with the basics. I don't want to dive too deep, otherwise people tend to get overwhelmed. So I don't want to overwhelm anyone, I just want to make sure that you're comfortable with some of the basics of whiteboard. Nothing you guys can think of right now? It's mostly kind of just playing with it and getting the hang of it. So let me do this. Let me give you guys, I know people that were in the previous workshop already have my email. But if you weren't, rLavarski@scootg.com. Yeah, I mean, I think that kind of covers the basics of the Bright Link, but as questions arise, don't hesitate to reach out. And, you know, the Professional Development Center is also a good resource. And as long as there's not a workshop going on, this room is available for anybody to come in and kind of practice and play with and kind of get the hang of it. So sometimes that's good too, because I know a lot of the classrooms are, you know, booked back to back all day, so it's not always easy to find a space to practice in. Question?
Calibration?
Yeah, good
Does it
question.
work the same thing?
So if this board is not calibrated, so if you'll notice it is right now, that is a call to the help desk.
Oh.
Because it's a little bit
Not
more,
this.
yep, exactly, it's a little bit more of a process than just the targets and hitting them. So the help desk determined that that would be something that they would come on to your classroom and help troubleshoot, not everybody learning how to do that. So, because I'm glad you asked that, because it's not as seamless as the smart board where you just hit the buttons and press the targets. So, yeah, if you notice that it's not calibrated, I'll give you your sheet back too. I believe you guys probably, there's usually a sticker in the classrooms to the help desk, right? A phone number. But honestly, there's not a lot of problems with calibration on these because they're not moving. I mean, there's nothing, once they're up they're calibrated, and that calibration usually sticks for the life of the projector, so. It's not like the smart boards. The smart boards seem to kind of get out of calibration more often than these. Any other questions? Any other, no? All right. Well, yeah, we'll kind of wrap it up there. If you guys want to stay and practice, obviously you're welcome to do that, but, yeah, let me know if you guys have questions or anything comes up. Happy to help. Thank you guys for coming.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank
and I know
you.
there's some emails if you guys want to do that. Should we?